Hey, it's Sunny here. I know it's been a long time since I've done a panhypopituitarism or septoptic dysplasia slash optic nerve hypoplasia video update on my health and how things have been going. I think the last one that I did was before I had lost my, or before I'd had to quit my job because of my health, back in 2016. And I think that last one was talking about just starting my growth hormone treatment. So I'm going to get you guys caught back up on what's been going on, what happened, and what I'm doing now for my treatments, and everything in between. So, probably going to be a bit of a long video, so let's get started. I guess I'll explain to you guys what happened with my job there. I know I had explained to you that, after I've started my growth hormone treatment that I was planning on getting a job and trying that again. So, let's see here. When I started my nootropic treatment, which has greatly improved my health overall, by the way, I can't praise them enough. It's been pretty good. I decided that I was feeling good enough after a couple of months of starting that, that I could, get back to work and find a job, and start bringing in a paycheck again. So I live very close to a local grocery store chain called Kroger, which they were absolutely amazing to me. The management was very caring, very understanding. When I went in for my first job interview there with them, I explained to the person giving me the interview that this was kind of a test to see if my body could handle this kind of work. I explained that I had some serious health conditions and this might not work out in the long run. I explained that I had lost my previous job due to health complications, but I was willing to try again, and they were more than happy to let me try working there. And so I started out as a bagger, and let me tell you folks, working as a, I think they're called a customer service associate. No, what was it? Anyway, I don't even remember, but baggers, the people that load your groceries into your cart for you and bring back carts and stuff and kind of do little cleanup maintenance things around the store. They work a lot harder than you think. But I did that for a while, up front, working as a bagger for about 2 weeks, and I tried my absolute hardest to push myself very hard, and my bosses were all very impressed. So within 2 weeks of working there, I was promoted to work in the produce department as a produce clerk. So I'd be out there, putting out fresh fruits and vegetables and making sure everything was good for the customers, and putting away truckload orders and stuff. And I really enjoyed working back there, and my coworkers were all pretty great too. I got along with everybody wonderfully. And I worked there in the produce department. Let's see here. I started working at Kroger about, I think it was October when I started working as a bagger. And I worked through certain holidays, like I worked through Thanksgiving, through Christmas. I think I even went through, I want to say that I went through July 4th, but I may be wrong about that. But I was, working back there through some really rough days. I just kept pushing myself really hard. I was getting really tired, of course, but I thought, I could handle this. I'll just, work as hard as I can. And at that point, I was seeing an endocrinologist that had me on a ridiculously high dose of steroids. I was on prednisone for a while, but he put me on hydrocortisone and set me to 40 milligrams a day, which I now know was a ridiculous amount, way too high. It was actually causing me to become ill, but I'll get you guys caught up on that later. But anyway, I was working in the produce department for a while, doing great. And then I think, okay, this is when this happened. I want to say in February of 2016, I had my first adrenal crisis. And it was pretty creepy feeling. If you don't know much about my condition, panhypopituitarism, I'll put a link in the description of the video here down below. And if you click on that, it'll take you to a video that I made called Panhypopituitarism 101, The Basics of PHP. And it explains all of the complications that come with my condition. And one of these complications is it causes secondary adrenal insufficiency, which basically means that my adrenal glands don't work properly. I don't create the stress hormone cortisol, so my adrenal glands don't really know what to do. So under certain amounts of stress, physical or emotional, it can cause something called an adrenal crisis. And basically, I wish that I knew a better way to explain this, but I'll just explain how it felt. I'm sure you can find, I'll put a link to some professional medical documentation about adrenal insufficiency and what an adrenal crisis is like in the description, and you can learn about that way. But I'll just explain my experience with it and what happened when I had mine. So it was after I'd been at work. I came home. I was exhausted, so I decided to go to bed. My fiance was home. I think he was working as a security guard at the time, so he was off work and he was playing some video games. I think he was actually getting ready to go to work that night. It was earlier on in the evening, like he works third shift, so it was like 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. around there sometime. But I woke up and I realized that I was feeling extremely nauseous and extremely weak. So I got up to go to the bathroom to, use the restroom and get, find some Tums or something to settle my stomach. And when I stood up, I realized that I was feeling extremely weak. Like, just, I get weak from time to time, but this was way more than usual. And I was feeling really, like, upset to my stomach, so I didn't run, but I made my way over to the bathroom, hobbled over to the bathroom, and wound up puking in the toilet right away. And it was very unpleasant. I just felt sick and weak and shaky all over. I knew something was wrong. I had never had an adrenal crisis before then, but I had kind of read up on what to expect or what to look out for when you have adrenal insufficiency, the signs of an adrenal crisis. So, and I believe those signs are, like feeling weak and dizzy. I'll put up a little list right around here somewhere, post-processing, of all the symptoms that you can experience when you're having an adrenal crisis. So here, I'm gonna scoot over this way. That's a door stopper on the wall. But, they'll have that list of, the symptoms that you can experience during an adrenal crisis. Anyway, I was having a lot of those, and I was getting really worried. So I decided that I should go to an ER because I did not have an emergency shot on hand. I'll show you later on in the video, possibly what the emergency steroid shot looks like for treating or stopping an adrenal crisis. It's called Selu-Cortef, and I've got the Actovile, so it's an easy to mix little thing. I'll put a link of that in the description as well, so you can learn more about those. But anyway, I was feeling very sick and very worried, so I decided to go ahead and go to the ER. Justin had to go to work, so I told him not to worry too much. I said, I'm conscious right now. I just don't feel well. I'm just going to go to the ER just in case this is an adrenal crisis. So my future mother-in-law, not married yet, getting there, but anyway, my future mother-in-law came and picked me up and took me to an emergency room one town over. Don't really care for the emergency room in the town that I live in. Don't want to drop any names, but not a good reputation. But anyway, I went to that other emergency room. Immediately got in. They weren't busy that night. So they put me in a room in the back. The ER doctor came and talked to me. I explained what I had. It's a really rare condition, so I honestly didn't expect him to know a whole lot about it. But he, did some research, looked it up, and did everything that he could to educate himself on what I had. And I've heard some horror stories about people in my similar situation, about, emergency room doctors not knowing about adrenal insufficiency and not trying to figure it out. And so they wind up not getting the life-saving care that they need. And, you can die from this if you don't get the right care. But luckily in my case, the doctor that I had educated himself and got the stress dose steroids and an IV immediately and got me taken care of as soon as he, knew what to do. So I was only in the back, in the ER room without treatment for, I want to say like 10-15 minutes before they went ahead and got the steroids in me. So, got my IV. That was fun. Those do not feel great. But, got that done, got the steroids in, and I was very dehydrated, which is another one of the symptoms that, right there. Which I think I'm gonna kind of push those away and scoot back to the middle here. Anyway, yeah, got the IV, got the steroids. Because I was dehydrated, they went ahead and gave me, I think by the end of my treatment, I had like 3 whole bags of saline solution put in through an IV before I left. I want to say like 3 or 4 of those. And they were giving me steroids like once every couple hours. But luckily I had a good ER doctor. He knew what to do. And he had me administered to, they had me stay in the hospital overnight for observation. My heart rate was through the roof. I wanted to leave earlier, but, because I was worried about, the cost of it, because I know staying in a hospital is not cheap. And I didn't have great insurance at the time, so I was really worried about the medical bills that I was going to receive from this. So I thought, I got the life-saving steroids that I needed. I got, rehydrated with the saline solution. I'm feeling pretty good. I actually called my boss and said, hey, I won't be able to come to work today, but I'll be there tomorrow. No, didn't happen. But I was high on steroids, feeling fantastic, so I thought that I could handle anything. No, anyway, I stayed there for about 24 hours. They wouldn't let me leave until my heart rate was under 100. Oh, Justin's home. I'll get back to you in a second. Okay, I'm back now. Sorry about that. Justin just came home on his break from work, so we had dinner together, and that was nice. But I'm back now and ready to explain the rest of my story here. Anyway, as I was saying, my heart rate was around 100, so they wanted me to, or it was over 100, so they wanted me to stay until it was, until it dropped down below 100. They had me do an EKG. I never heard about the results from that, so I guess it came back fine. But I finished out like 3 or 4 bags of saline solution, and then when my heart rate, got down to a normal amount, they went ahead and sent me home. And I was reading my record from that night, explaining, that it was on file as an adrenal crisis, and they said that it was brought on by an asthma attack. Come to find out, I was actually developing an upper respiratory infection, and that's what wound up causing it, along with my body being weakened from working as hard as I was working. But I wound up being sick with that upper respiratory infection for about a week, so I didn't get back to work for another week or so. And then when I got back, I had restrictions. I had weight restrictions, so I couldn't lift more than 50 pounds, which means I couldn't lift the bags of potatoes in the produce department, so that, made things difficult. And because of my adrenal insufficient, or my adrenal crisis being caused by an asthma attack, they wanted me to stay out of the freezer and the refrigeration sections at work, so I couldn't work in the back of the produce department because everything in there is in a refrigerator. So I wasn't allowed to go back there, and that held me back a lot at work. So they wound up moving me to a different department, and I started working as a stocking stocking things like in the regular grocery department. And I was busting my butt trying to work as hard as I could, but unfortunately, because of that adrenal crisis, my health started to decline in the long run. So I wound up having to not work in the produce department, but I still worked as hard as I could in the in grocery, and I worked in the department that not the pharmacy, but the area where you put in vitamins and stuff, stocking that area. So I really enjoyed that as well, and I've enjoyed my coworkers in that department too. And I still worked as hard as I could. So we got a new manager that came in, and she didn't really know about my health condition too much. She wasn't there when I had gotten hired on, and I hadn't really talked to her a whole lot, but she saw that I was working hard and that I was excuse me, and that I was willing to take on a lot of responsibility. And one of the other department heads at the store was retiring, so her department was in need of a new department head, and she asked me if I wanted the position. And I had told her, at first, I was really excited that somebody thought that I was responsible enough to handle a department all on my own, so I immediately said yes, of course, like an idiot. And I started training in that department, but after about a week, I, started thinking a whole lot about it, that, my health is unpredictable. Sometimes I had to call in days at work and say, I'm just not feeling well today, I need to stay home. And that was happening more and more often, so I was concerned that if I were to get sick and not be able to come to work for a few days, that my whole department would suffer. And that brings down the entire store, statistic-wise, when they're, looking at their revenues and their, balances and sales and stuff. So unfortunately, with me being a department head, I would cause the store to suffer with my health being as unpredictable as it was. So, I went up to her office one day, and I, sat down and I explained to her, I don't know how much you know about my health condition, but I'm afraid that I won't be able to handle this position. And I explained to her the complications that come with it, And I said that I was really flattered that she considered me for the position, but I think it would be in the best interest of the store if I, stepped down and let somebody else have the job, because I knew there were other people who were interested in it as well. And I just did not have the stamina to keep up with an entire department. And this woman, she looked me right in the eyes and said, "You know what I think? I think you don't want to do it." And that just wrecked me. I was nice, I behaved, and I calmly explained to her, "I'm sorry that you misunderstand me. I'm sorry that you're just misjudging me and thinking that I'm just lazy, but I have a serious medical condition, and I'm afraid that my health just will not hold up for a position like this." And I said, I understand that this is frustrating for you, not having an employee, taking this position that you want them to take, but imagine how frustrating it is for me having a body that doesn't want to work half the time. And, I got a little snappy with her, but I think she deserved it. But I explained to her, no, I'm not going to take this job. I'm sorry. Give it to somebody who will be able to keep up with it better. And I left, and I kept working there for a few more weeks. But with that little moment on top of, the stress of work causing me to become more and more ill, I started developing, really strong bouts of vertigo. And my health just kept getting worse and worse very rapidly, and I went to see my endocrinologist about it, and there was nothing he could do to help me. He was a good doctor for knowing about adult growth hormone deficiency, and he was great about treatments for that, but I don't think he really understood adrenal insufficiency too much, so I found a different endocrinologist. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll catch you up there in a minute, but because of everything getting worse and worse, and with my endocrinologist not really knowing what to do to help me with that, I was just passed from doctor to doctor trying to diagnose the cause of this vertigo, which, come to find out, is actually caused by my panhypopituitarism, mixed with my optic nerve hypoplasia. I'll explain that a little bit more later. But all of those issues just kept getting worse and worse. And I realized that, my health isn't getting any better. I keep missing work, I keep letting people down, having to call in, and actually leaving work early because I get hit with a dizzy spell so strong that I just have to lay down. That was the worst part, but when I realized that it wasn't getting any better, I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I quit my job. And I decided to, try to go for disability if I could. This starts the beginning of a very long emotional roller coaster for me. But so I quit my job. It took me a little while to recover. I spent a lot of time at home just resting and trying to get my body to catch up. So I wasn't sick all the time, but the dizzy spells never went away. They got a little bit better, but they've never gone away, and I still have them a lot from time to time. So, with my endocrinologist that I had at the time, he wasn't supportive. I explained my symptoms to him. He basically just told me, "No, there's nothing that I can do about this. Go see your primary care physician." Went to my primary care physician. She said, "Yeah, you're having vertigo symptoms. I don't know what to do. Let's send you to an ear, nose, and throat specialist." I went to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. He said, well, because you have a double nystagmus, and we use nystagmuses to determine whether it's an inner ear problem or something else, I can't diagnose you, so I'm going to have you do an MRI, and when that comes back, we'll know if something else is causing this, and we can go from there. MRI came back showing that, I have my the septoptic dysplasia / optic nerve hypoplasia, a really small pituitary gland, and, everything that comes along with those. None of that was surprising because that was already on file. They said there was nothing out of the ordinary outside of that. So it pretty much told me that I was out of luck. And when he, told me that, I was just kind of stunned. I didn't know what to do. Because my original endocrinologist wasn't any help to me, and I found out that he was against any of his patients getting on disability, not because of their conditions, not because he didn't think they needed it, but because it was a personal hang-up with him that he personally didn't think anybody should be on disability. I decided to get a new endocrinologist. So I found a new endocrinologist, I went to see her, and she looked at my treatments that he had me on and immediately said, "No, this is he's got you on way too many steroids. This is actually causing you to have symptoms of Cushing's disease, which is the exact opposite of adrenal insufficiency. It's when you have too much of the hormones for that. So I like had really puffy face. It was causing me to become ill in many other ways. I'll put a link to Cushing's disease in the description below, so you can check that out as well, because it's another rare condition that could use a little bit more of a spotlight. But anyway, because of all those issues, she put me on a much lower steroid dose, and she continued the other therapies that he had me on, including the growth hormone. Had me on my thyroid meds, all the supplements that I had to take because I've got deficiencies in vitamin D. I don't make melatonin. I don't make melatonin like I should. And I've just got a whole bunch of other deficiencies, so I take a bunch of supplements to keep up with those. So she continued that treatment after fixing the extremely high dose of steroids that he had me on. And I worked with her for a little while. And I was afraid that the dizziness might have been caused by the brand of birth control that I was on. I had to take birth control to replace the hormones that, like the female hormones like estrogen and progesterone and all that fun stuff that my body wouldn't make on its own because of the panhypopituitarism. So after talking to her, I tried to see if she'd take me off of birth control and put me on the straight hormones themselves, the progesterone and the estrogen, just to, instead of being on birth control, which I had to be on birth control or those hormones to regulate a period because I wouldn't have one otherwise. And it's very important to have one because that greatly increases the risk of cancer if you don't, have a period regularly like you should. So I asked her if she would be willing to put me on those hormones, and she said that she wasn't well enough educated on those hormones in particular, and she referred me to see a gynecologist and see if they would help with that. So I went to a gynecologist, had my first women's wellness exam. That was fun. Anyway, I talked to my gynecologist about being on those hormones, and she said that's not something that she does. Like, it's not something she specializes in, so she referred me to an endocrinologist that would help me with that. So I really liked the endocrinologist that I was seeing at the time, but I went ahead and took the referral to the new endocrinologist, and I spoke with her, and she also was not well educated on, the keeping up with hormones without the use of birth control, which, I mean, if you've got this condition, get used to it, because stuff like this, like being passed from doctor to doctor, and all the trial and error stuff, that's how the treatment goes. Not every doctor is well educated on every aspect, and because panhypopituitarism is such a widespread, there's so many things that it covers inside your body that it's difficult for any one endocrinologist to be able to handle every hormone. But thankfully, this new endocrinologist that I started seeing was willing to educate herself on this. So I went ahead and was transferred from the endocrinologist that I was seeing at the time to her completely. And so she started me on a new treatment program for that. Took me off the birth control and put me on prednisone and medroxyprogesterone, which would replace the birth control that I was on. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the birth control was causing the dizziness as I had feared. But being on the progesterone and medroxyprogesterone instead of the birth control has really improved a bunch of aspects of my life. Like, my appetite is greatly improved. When I was on birth control, I wanted to eat everything all the time, and that definitely contributed to some of the weight gain. Like, when you have my condition, you're going to gain some weight anyway. There's really nothing you can do about it. But birth control made it even worse because it really increased my appetite and it just packed on the pounds. But being on the estrogen and medroxyprogesterone instead, my appetite is just kind of gone out the window, which I'm not complaining about at all. I feel like I have a normal appetite now. I don't have to eat as much as I used to. Like, I felt like I was starving if I didn't eat right that moment when I was on birth control. But now it's gotten so much better, and I've started to lose a little bit of weight, which is great, and I hope that continues. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I'm on this new treatment, instead of the birth control. It hasn't exactly balanced itself out yet. I've missed some periods. I had one that was really intense, and I had the worst PMS ever because of that. But it's going to take a while for it to be balanced out. Again, with treatments like this, it's trial and error, hit and miss. You take the pills, you do a blood test, you see what your levels look like, and you see how your body is reacting to things, and you adjust accordingly. So I just started on this new treatment a few months ago. So it's kind of up in the air right now whether or not it's going to work for me, but we're trying it. And so far I like it better than being on the birth control, even though it's a little bit more complicated to take 2 different pills. It's on a really complicated schedule than taking, one birth control pill a day and having to deal with all of the side effects. But anyway, talking to her about, my problems with the dizziness and, the vertigo and the weakness and how everything has been, she said, looking at your file here, looking at all of these hormonal deficiencies that you have with these imbalances, along with the double nystagmus due to your septo-optic dysplasia, it's no surprise that you're dizzy. She explained to me that having certain hormonal imbalances can cause dizziness. Not, having the right levels of your of thyroid in your body can cause, dizziness. So she put me on a new dose of thyroid meds, a little bit higher than what I was on before. I went from 88 mcgs to 100 mcgs, and we're trying to see if that will, kind of balance it out and see if that'll affect the dizziness. And that started, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks ago. But it could take up to 6 weeks before my body knows as much of an effect. Because of the way that the medication, reacts with your body. It's really complicated, but I'll add an article in the description of this video as well, so that you can read up on how T3, thyroid and stuff works in your body. But she said that once we get my hormones balanced out, to a point where it's, seems like it works better for me. She said right now I'm on the low end of normal, but she's gonna give me a little bit more to see if maybe I'm just being undertreated, and that could cause the dizziness. So we're just gonna, again, like I said, trial and error. We're trying everything that we can to try to figure out what's causing this dizziness. But she said it could be the hormonal imbalances, it could be my double nystagmus, but more than likely it's both of them working together, and everything, causing all of this dizziness excuse me, and this weakness and fatigue. So I explained to her, I expressed the difficulties that I had working, and that I was having, a hell of a time trying to find work. And she said that she completely agrees that with my condition, that I'm working full-time as my own pituitary gland, so there's no way that I could handle a full-time job. There's no way I could find gainful employment with my condition. So she's supporting my, trying to get disability. And just hearing her say those words was so validating to me. I haven't explained a lot of the emotional stuff that I went through from the time that I had to quit my job up until hearing her say that. It had been about a year since I had quit my job, and I've had some issues, like trying to explain to people, because I look healthy. The thing about this condition is it's an invisible disability. I'm not walking around on crutches. I'm not in a wheelchair. I don't have some flashing neon sign above my head saying, "Hey, look, I'm disabled." So people assume that I'm perfectly healthy and there's nothing wrong with me. So when I tell people, "Hey, I think I'm going to try to get disability," and they don't understand how serious my condition is, the judgment that I felt was heartbreaking, even from people really close to me. Luckily, I've got a very supportive fiance, and my grandma is also an amazing ally to me. So they got me through some really, really rough times, but I had a bit of an existential crisis, a bit of an emotional breakdown. I was not doing well there for a while, but I pushed through it, and I'm glad that I found this endocrinologist. And I was kind of afraid to express to her that I wanted to be on disability, but, when I did, And her reaction, you know, being just, she wasn't even all that surprised. She said, no, I agree, you should get disability with your condition. And writing down her notes that she supports, you know, trying to get on disability for me. That alone just took all the weight off my shoulders. And I can't thank her enough for that. So she's going to work with me and my attorney to try to get me approved for disability. And that's in the works right now. Unfortunately, and I understand, you know, with my age, and I appear to be healthy, and my conditions are very rare. So I understand why it's so difficult for me to get approved for disability. And I understand why the process takes such a long time that way, because I have to prove everything that I say is true. It could probably be another year before I could get a court date to get on disability, but I'm trying. And I did try to work. It didn't work for me. I had my adrenal crisis, and my health greatly suffered. So I can't work. It sucks. There are some, I mean, I'm not saying that if you have my condition that you can't work. No two panhypopituitarism patients are the same. It's very complicated. Some people may be able to handle a full-time job, you know, with treatment. Other people, like myself, unfortunately, because I have so many other issues, you know, with the septoptic dysplasia, and my thyroid gland itself is very small, and my other organs, you know, some of them are smaller than they should be. Because of all of that, some people, you know, could be able to handle work. I can't. Doesn't mean that you can't if you get the panhypopituitarism diagnosis. So my recommendation for you, if you do have panhypopituitarism and you don't know if you can handle work yet or not, try it. Just try it. I know it kind of sucks, but I mean, working sucks, period. But if you can handle it, go for it. I mean, I miss work. It was so fulfilling for me. I felt like even though I was just putting apples on a shelf, I felt like I was contributing to something. And it felt great. Now, unfortunately, being unable to work, society has a huge stigma against people who can't work, even if you're disabled. And again, like I said, with my disability being invisible, like you can't see any proof of it unless you look at blood work, you feel judged, and it sucks. But, I'm getting off track here. Anyway, if you can handle work, go for it and try it. If you can't, there's no shame in admitting that you have a disability. It's not your fault. Panhypopituitarism is either congenital or caused by, you know, trauma to the brain, like whether it's a tumor or whatever. If your pituitary gland is injured and you can no longer work because of the complications, or if you have any other condition that causes you to not be able to find gainful employment, do not let people make you feel like crap because of it. It's not your fault. And just, if you want to prove to yourself that you do want to work and you do want to contribute to society, you can try to work. And if it doesn't work out, if you do end up getting sick like I did, it's okay. It sucks, but it's okay. That's when you get yourself a good ally like my doctor or my grandma, and get yourself an attorney and go for disability. That's what the program is there for people like me and you who just can't work. It sucks, but it's a thing that happens. But anyway, that's basically what I've been going through lately. Whoops, didn't mean to knock my mic. Apologies. But yeah, all that fun stuff. So, still on growth hormone. I've explained all the other treatment that's going on. My endocrinologist is actually sending me to an what's it called? Neurological ophthalmologist. That's a new specialist to add to my list. I haven't gotten to see one of those yet, but my endocrinologist is sending me to see one to help with my suboptic dysplasia / optic nerve hypoplasia. If you don't know what that is, I'll put a link in the description as well explaining that condition. I honestly don't know a whole lot about that either because it's so rare and there really aren't that many resources on it online. But I'm going to be going to see that specialist, and hopefully they'll be able to kind of give me a little bit more insight on my condition and how that's affecting me as well. I did see a vision specialist that knows about my condition. For a while there, after I'd quit my job at Kroger, I tried to go through vocational rehabilitation services, which helps people who have, health conditions but can also work. It helps them find employment that works with their conditions. Unfortunately, I was unable to find employment that I could handle. But my voc rehab counselor sent me to see a vision specialist that knew about my condition. About my optic nerve hypoplasia, septo-optic dysplasia, whatever you want to call it. Either one. But, he did some tests. He did a retinal scan and showed me what my optic nerve looks like, which is, I tried to get a picture of it, emailed to me, but they never did send that in. But I think it looks really cool. I'm hoping to paint a picture of it sometime, if I get to see it. If I ever get a copy of it. But, he explained to me that my optic nerve isn't really connected very well, and, he did a peripheral vision test to kind of explain, to show that I have no peripheral vision at all. Which, actually, I guess I'll take this chance to explain my glasses that I've got here. They're a little broken. I'm working on getting them fixed, but if you take a look here, got my hair stuck to it. Get off there. Whoops. Pulled a little hair. Anyway, if you can see, they look a little weird. They've got that line down the middle of them there. These are actually what's called Chadwick lenses. They're a little dirty. Oops. But, yeah, those little raised parts there, they kind of sit off in the peripheries there, so I have to turn my eye like really far to the left and to the right to be able to see through them. But basically what those do is they act kind of like the mirrors on your car, where they kind of bring in what you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. Now, they're not in focus and they're not really detailed, but I can at least see when something's moving along my side, which I couldn't see before, not having peripheral vision. So that just kind of helps give me a heads up that, hey, something's coming, so I don't, bump into door frames or countertops as often as I used to. But, let me get back in the center here. Good enough. Anyway, went to see that specialist, and he pretty much told me, it's not safe for you to drive, so I can't drive, which adds to the troubles of trying to find a job as well, because I live in a small town, and they're just, the only thing that's available within walking distance is retail work or factory work. And my body can't handle either one, so that adds to the issues. But don't have peripheral vision, so I can't drive. My vision is crap anyway. I have a double nystagmus, which can cause the vertigo as well. So, yeah, just all those fun stuff. Just all that fun stuff just kind of working together against me. But he didn't really explain a whole lot about optic nerve hypoplasia / septo-optic dysplasia. So I'm eager to see this new neurological ophthalmologist and learn as much as I can about my condition and hopefully pass that knowledge on to you guys. Because I know a couple of the people that I've met online that have panda hypopituitarism also have the septo-optic dysplasia, optic nerve hypoplasia, whatever you want to call it. So it's not uncommon for people, with my condition to have both of these conditions. So, and I know there just aren't that many resources on them online. So I'm hoping that I can learn a little bit and, again, pass that knowledge on to you guys. But until then, I really don't have a whole lot else to report on, other than I might be getting partnered on YouTube soon. Woohoo! It's awesome. Thank you guys for all the views so that I can do that. Not being able to work means I don't bring in any money, so I'm hoping that I might be able to bring in some of those YouTube ad revenues there. So, yay, click on some ads if you see any. If you don't like ads, I'm sorry, but I could use the help. so I'm gonna try to get partnered on there. They're reviewing my account now, and I'll find out more later. I'm also on Twitch, playing games from time to time. Planning on doing some more Stupid Doodle streams sometime soon. I've been playing a lot of 7 Days to Die. Again, unfortunately, with my eyes being as bad as they are, I get eye strain real easy, so I can't stream for very long. But I can go for a couple of hours, and then, take a break, and maybe come back next day or so. So I'm gonna be getting a regular Twitch schedule up and going. Like I said, Doodle streams, 7 Days to Die. I've got Jackbox games. I love Drawful, so I'll probably be playing a lot of that. If you have any game suggestions that you want me to try out, go for it. I'll try just about anything. The only issue is if it's an expensive game, I won't be able to buy it right away. But I can save up for stuff, so just let me know what you're interested in, and I'll do my best to deliver. But yeah, that's just about everything, and I appreciate all of the support that I've gotten from you guys. Of all the views and the comments and just all the feedback that I've gotten on YouTube, I've only ever had one negative comment, and that person deleted their comment, so I'd say that that's a YouTube record. You guys are amazing, and thank you so much for all the positivity and for sharing your stories in the comment sections of my Pan Hypopituitarism videos. I love hearing your stories, and I love talking to you about things and offering, advice to anybody who needs it. I'm definitely not a medical professional, and I'm not an expert by any means, but I mean, I've experienced quite a bit myself having this condition and trying to get everything balanced and learn as much as I can about it. I'm happy to pass that knowledge on to you guys. So, again, thank you so much for the comments, and you're awesome. I keep saying that, and it sounds so cheesy, but I mean it. Thank you. And I'll try to do more videos like this, updating you on how things have been, and kind of bring the community together a little bit more so that we can talk about, Pan Hypopituitarism and other invisible illnesses that people have. I'm going to try to get involved in something called Spoonie Speak. Hashtag Spoonie Speak. I'll put that across the screen there so you can see it, and also a link in the description below. It's a community on Twitter. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter, which is why I haven't been involved on there, but I'm going to try to. It's, I think every Friday night, a bunch of Spoonies get together and hang out online and answer questions and just kind of talk to one another. That way you don't, it's having a condition like this, you can feel kind of ostracized and lonely. But Spoonie Speak looks like a really cool thing. I've never gotten involved in it before, but I'm going to check it out. And there's one tomorrow night. Actually, what time is it? There's one tonight. It's Friday. So I'm going to hop on there and, kind of swap stories with other Spoonies. And I invite you to do the same. So it'll be Friday, August 18th. I don't remember what time it starts, but I'll have that information in the description of this video. And a link to the hashtag Spoonie Speak thing on Twitter so you can follow along. But I'm excited to check it out, and I hope to see you there. And I hope to see you on my other videos, comment sections and stuff. And talk to me. Things like that. Sounds like fun. But I'm running out of things to say, so I'm going to go ahead and just end this video here. That sounds good. Okay. Bye.